Sometimes when I'm doing game reviews for solo developers or very small teams of like 2 to 5 people, it's just as much providing user testing feedback, I guess, than it is providing a full-on game review for something that's in early access. So that's what we're doing today with Legacy of the Pact. Legacy of the Pact is a Vampire Survivors styled moment-to-moment gameplay, but set in an RPG setting, which made me kind of go, Vampire Survivors Diablo Edition. Now obviously the price point for this is £4.29p. It's not going to be hitting that kind of level of depth or ingenuity, so adjust your expectations accordingly. But there are some interesting kernels here of fun to be had, but it needs some serious work to get it to the point where I could recommend this game wholeheartedly. I think this is one of those games that's really, really rough around the edges and could do with some wider user testing. In Legacy of the Pact, you start off with one of two different classes, a warrior and a mage. And they start off initially with very different attacks. The warrior has a short-range axe, which can be really quite powerful in slaying multiple enemies because the enemies just run towards you in lines, which is a bit of a shame because it means that you don't ever really feel truly swamped until later in the game. But the wizard's or mage's attack is a really thin, pointy laser beam. And whilst it feels quite twin-stick shootery because you have to move with the left stick and rotate and aim with the right stick to get the stuff to work properly, whereas the warrior is very much like move and then just press X to what's in front of you. The whole real problem with this is that as you upgrade the characters to have additional attacks, weapons, other stats, they no longer feel different and start to converge to feel identical, because the upgrading attacks that you have in addition to that starter base attack are all very similar. They're just themed differently depending on which character class you go through. And what I'd really like to see with Legacy of the Pact is for each class to feel different through that upgrade system, because what I found after an hour and a half of playing was that both of the characters felt nigh on identical after my first couple of upgrades, and then the whole game started to feel very samey very quickly. And so where I had the most this feels different was right at the very beginning of each run through. More of that I think would be really appreciated. The other thing that I really appreciated is the fact that this is put into an RPG setting and there's events triggering around you as you progress through the level. So the main part of the early access version of Legacy of the Pact at the moment is to go into an enchanted forest. You start out in a giant castle corridor kind of wandering through, and it felt so very Vampire Survivors. But what it started to do was to then give me branching paths to wander around. There was dynamic weather apparently coming to this game, which feels like a very odd addition, but hey, differentiator. The key thing though was things like going and grabbing village survivors and helping them survive a wave of enemies and running to their aid and sorting out that issue, whilst also grinding for XP, leveling up and stopping all of the other enemies coming towards you. And again, buying into more of that so that this game feels different to just being a pure wave enemy based mow them down and feel powerful fest. It's all of those different differentiators that make this game stand out. This subgenre is already too crowded too quickly, and so being able to have these additional things and ideas to make you stand out, I think just makes this purchase much more warrantable in the future. There is a pure wave-based arena mode, and that's tied to a Steam leaderboard, as is the previous run as well. And that was good fun, but it did show just how very Vampire Survivors-y this game is without the RPG element, and I wouldn't recommend it purely on that alone. The other thing I quite liked is that each run started off in an RPG pub, so that you could buy and purchase character upgrades, new weapons potentially coming in the future. But sadly the coin system didn't seem to be working for me properly, so I wasn't able to buy any of those upgrades. So again, going back to this being very early access, very rough around the edges, a lot of this needs sorting in the future so that things can feel and work cohesively and better and properly. So, would I recommend Legacy of the Pact? No, not now. I think this is one of those ones where if you really like this style of game, keep it on your wish list. It's going to look rough around the edges just by the assets that are being used. The actual moment-to-moment gameplay isn't too bad at all, but it's working and making itself distinctive from the rest of the crowd by buying into having different classes that upgrade totally different, having those kind of survivor, battle the horde, defend the tower, like moment-to-moment events taking place that will really make this game stand out from the crowd. And if they double down on that as a development team, I think this could be worthy of a purchase. Written review will be over on higherplayinggames.com at a later point, once this game is a bit more fully into its development cycle. Take care. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplane network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.